Hey there, Nathan here. So this is going to be a walkthrough, high level of the automated LinkedIn DM system and how to set up the overall flow. There are a couple credentials here that need to be set up. They're really simple, very similar to each other. Now, high level, what does this thing do? What it does is it takes an 8 end form, natural language search. So basically think of it as like a pop-up that takes search quite like ideas, right? So if you're looking for real estate, brokers that have between 1 to 50 employees that are located in the US and go buy these sort of names that are only on the buyer side. Well, you can look that stuff up in the general URL search step here using AI. We'll create an Apollo YO URL. Then we use Apify to scrape the Apollo IO URL. And for each lead in that resulting list, we create a personalized outreach message that we then store together with the lead information in the Intuitable sheet. And from that Google sheet, we use Phantom Buster, a third-party automation tool that can go out and connect automatically with these leads for us using those personalized outreach messages. So now the setup, right? I'm going to have to treat this as if you've never seen an API before to a certain extent. So here, if you double click in, you're going to see a pencil over here. There's going to be something called an API key. An API key is essentially a very long string of numbers, letters, and characters, essentially, that const you to a passcode to contact a remote endpoint or server, database, whatever, to get information or to do something with data. So API stands for Application Protocol Interface. It's just an acronym. Just call it API. Now, for an OpenAI account, what do you do to get yours? So first you search OpenAI API, you'll get this sort of page. Click sign up, and once you're signed up, you basically get to a page like this. Once you get to a page like this, you go to the settings up on the top right, go to API keys, and then you create a new one, and you name it the name of the workflow. I'm not going to create one right now, but essentially imagine this right here is the secret key. Well, that API key, you pay, I used it right there. And then that's how you set up your OpenAI. Now, in terms of these AI steps, generally, how do they work? So generally speaking, you have an operation. You can do a couple different types of things there. But generally speaking, when you're doing like a message to a model to get some sort of like generate a response, you can essentially just use any sort of model in this list. 01, 03, 4, 3.5, even if you want to, but here we're using 4.5. What's important about this stuff in particular is that we're essentially giving it a prompt. This is a prompt that gives an example of an Apollo 1O URL search, tells it how to essentially extract certain things and change certain fields within that overall URL. And then exactly what sort of, I'll put where expecting. For expecting a JSON object, a JSON essentially is a way of formatting text. So then across API keys, different types of technologies as well, it's basically generally understandable text. So we expect an object, and that's what we're going to work with in the next step. In the next step, we have Apify. Apify, if you can remember the API key from the step before, also essentially takes some sort of API key. So you can set that up here, but you can also essentially, and you will have to how you to do certain things, the one that we're using here, that allows you to scrape up to 50,000 leaves from Apollo Scraper for about $1.20 for every 1,000 leaves, right? So that said, in order to set it up, you set up the account, you go to abify.com. And then once you have that set up, you have your go-to settings, you have your own API. He already set up an API and integrations. You copy that, and then you go back and you paste it right there and set it up in this generic bearer token. So that said, that's how you set that up. Now, in terms of customizing this field, you can customize some of the things that the actor, apply actor, dots, in this JSON down here. You can search that up. That's why I wanted to show you the actual actor that we're using. You can search up that information here or elsewhere on the internet. Plenty of information out there on how to set up the Zapify steps. That said, we go to the second or third to last step that we need to set up. Here in this step of the process where we create the personalized outreach message, we choose a 4.0 model. And here is one of the most customizable places, or one of the places where you'd want to most likely customize the output, because this is the icebreaker message, the personalized message that you're going to send to anybody on LinkedIn to increase the likelihood that they'll actually connect with you. So everybody has their own taste, their own style. It's already kind of written out here. That said, go to town if you really need to. Just make sure that the prompt is always returning the exact same type of outputs, because those outputs are going to be expected in the next field, that next field being the next field. Next step being like Ugushi. Setting up a Google account credential is one of the more complex credentials to set up on the platform. That said, I don't think I'm going to be able to go through that here. There are plenty of docs in the actual NAD. You have docs here, or you can click the pencil and go to the open docs here, and they go through it step by step. You can also look it up on YouTube and so on. Ultimately, you always get an API key, a private passcode to give it access to your sheets. Now, what we want to do here, do you want to give it access to a very particular sheet that's stored or constructed in a very particular way? Because there are values that we're going to send. ID, first name, last name, going all the way down to icebreaker. We have that set up over here. It's around 8, I believe, different column names. Ultimately, I just need to name it that. Now when we go back over here, if anything were to break, it could be more likely than not break here, because you're mapping a lot of different data to a lot of different columns. So if you ever wonder, okay, why is Google Sheet breaking? Probably this. Look into this. So that's how you set up to Google Sheet. Step, last but not least, is the Fandom Buster step. Here we're hitting a API endpoint. From Fandom Buster, how do you set up a Fandom Buster key to get the API key? It's another API key. Oh man. So we basically go to fandombuster.com. Once you set up your account, you go through like the 3 or 4 service that they ask you. You go to the top right, there's going to be API keys under, and then you can copy paste that in. Don't use my key. I'm not going to use it anyway. Just don't use anybody else's key ever. And that's a bad person thing to do. So you just paste that in there. So from there, that sets up. I've got a Phantom Buster to go out and do its thing. And that's how you essentially set this up. Now, before I get off, I just wanted to give you a couple heads up or ideas here. Because what this work full of essentially is a way of scraping a lot of leads and creating personalized measures. You can actually create multiple different routes over here to do multiple different things with these leads and these outreach messages. But I highly recommend, because the whole goal is to connect with people with a personalized message, to enrich the data using more Apify actors. So before I was kind of clicking back from a previous actor page, this one right here, this is a LinkedIn Profiles Creeper. This is something that you can use. I'm not going to say you should, because it's low start. Always look for community support, highest community support, and low cost. This is relatively high cost to use. You can use something like this, or you can use something like this, which is just a bit cheaper to get the information additionally. That's something you can do, and that's also up to you, because ultimately you have your own style and how you want to outreach to people. This is a great first step, and I hope you enjoy